webinar. And we want to thank the Salesforce team for making this event possible. And a special thanks to Tom Winter in New York. Thanks, Tommy. We recognize that your time is valuable, and so we really want to use it wisely. Our goal is to give you a vision for what good can look like in your world. So we do not intend to overwhelm you with a whole bunch of detail here. Rather, we want to give you a glimpse of what it's like to integrate leasing, financial, and operations data to deliver you a comprehensive view of the asset or property management business from your laptop, tablet, or smartphone. First, a little housekeeping. We're going to keep this format crisp. Our presentation should not be more than about 25 minutes, and that should leave us plenty of time for questions. We want this session to be very useful and meaningful for you, so please send us your questions. You'll see down in your control panel, there's a spot there for questions. Enter your questions there. We'll keep track of them, and at the end of the presentation, we'll tackle as many of those questions as we can in the available time. So I'm John Hammond. I'm the CEO and founder of Fortimize. I'm the moderator for your webinar today. I'm joined by Carl Brundage, our Director of Products and Solutions. Carl is a brilliant technologist who has an exceptional ability to get to the heart of a business problem and to optimize it. And Carl is an expert on the Salesforce platform, including Wave Analytics. Wave is the platform on which we built the solution we are showing today. At Fortimize, we believe that Wave is a true technology disruption. Until now, business intelligence and data visualization tools have been expensive, cumbersome, and very techy. They weren't designed to be used by mere mortals. So we live in a world of exponentially growing data. According to IBM, 90% of the data in the world has been created in the last 2 years alone. So we're in danger of data overwhelm. We need help. Maybe you're familiar with the DIKW pyramid. Our goal here is to turn data into knowledge, to generate useful information from that knowledge that will empower wisdom and to the ability then to make right choices, to know why it is what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing. So Wave puts the power to see data and to poke at it, to play with it, and to gain new insights instantly into the hands of regular business users like the asset manager Carl's going to role play today. Wave empowers you to make wise business decisions, to know why things are the way they are. So I think you should be prepared to be amazed. But before we dive into Carl's demo, I want to just take a moment to orient you to the Fortimize real estate viewpoint. It's a very high-level picture, but you can think of 3 distinct business processes or 3 pillars in real estate. The leftmost pillar is investor relations, or IR. This is the process of raising money, either in a limited partnership or a mutual fund or any number of other vehicles. The second pillar is the second business process, acquisitions and dispositions, where you put the capital you raise to work. This is looking at 100 deals to find the one that fits with your business strategy at the price that you want to pay. Fortimize has developed solutions encompassing all of these business processes, but today we're focused on the right column, asset management and property management. You develop and implement a business plan for an asset, and then, whether you're directly managing the property or handing it off to a third party, you actively monitor performance and seek to maximize net operating income and to increase the asset value. The example we're looking at today is actually for multifamily residential, but the principles you're going to see here could just as easily be applied to commercial, mixed use, single family residential, industrial, triple net, and so forth. Obviously, the key performance indicators will vary between different asset classes or even different owners. But the big idea to take away is that you can bring your data to life and put actionable insights right at your fingertips with the Wave solution that Fortimize has developed. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Carl now to show you the astonishing power of Wave. Carl?
Thanks, John. Now, I get to have some fun today. Instead of being Carl, I get to be Alex, an asset manager at Next Level Real Estate. As an asset manager, I have a portfolio of several dozen multifamily properties that I manage. I have a business plan that was established during the acquisition of these properties, as well as an annual budget to manage against. In order to hit my goals, I need information from multiple areas of our organization: finance, accounting, property management, leasing, maintenance, and marketing, to name a few. While data analysis is a main part of my job, I don't get to spend as much time on it as I like. Instead, it seems like my time goes to assembling information. For example, there's daily reports that are delivered via email. I have a shared drive of PDF files that I need to sort through. There's an external marketing system that I need to log in to view online reports. I have my own Excel models to review as well too, and I even get a printed report on a monthly basis. So the question becomes, how do I manage my assets when I spend so much of my time sifting through mountains of data? There has to be an answer, and there is. It's Wave to the rescue. So I'm going to start by looking front and center. As soon as I log into Salesforce, I have a real estate asset management performance dashboard available for me. So looking at my dashboard, there's a couple things I want to draw out. First of all, I'm looking at an income portfolio. I could switch to some of my other portfolio properties to see how they're doing as well too. I'm also looking at all properties in this portfolio. I could easily filter down to one of the properties, and in fact, what's shown here is only the properties that are part of that portfolio, so I don't have to sift through mountains of data. Next, I have 4 areas that key performance indicators are shown: an overview, financials, operations, and leasing. Let's take a look at each one in a little bit more detail. First, from an overview perspective, I can see how many units make up this property and a breakdown of units by a particular risk profile. Below, I have my debt coverage, seeing when particular debt is coming due, what year, as well as whether it's a fixed or variable rate. And I can see the details by just hovering over it. From a financials perspective, I have my net operating income, or NOI, front and center over the last 6 months summed up. I can also see how I'm doing against my budget. The budget is represented by the red line, and the blue bars show the actual. So you can see from a performance perspective, we've been getting fairly close to our budget plans, but there's more work we can do. Below, I have my operational metrics. I can look at leases that are expiring in the coming months and see a breakdown by the number of beds, 1, 2, or 3, so I know what properties I'm going to have to fill with new tenants. I can also see the renewal rate for my portfolio, those tenants that decide to stick with us for another year versus how much we have to go out and get prospects off the open market. And then finally, I have my leasing pipeline, where I can see the number of leads, whether that be people who take a call in to inquire about our property, view us online, or submit a guest card. That corresponds then to the number of tours that we give of our property. Finally, the number of applications that are completed, which results in the number of tenants that actually move in. And similarly, I can see how much it costs for us in marketing dollars to get each one of those move-ins. Now, from a portfolio level, we're doing pretty well, but there's a particular property lately that has been kind of difficult. It's known as Autumn Ridge. What I can do is simply click on Autumn Ridge. What will happen is Autumn Ridge will open up with the same dashboard, but it'll automatically filter down to that property. You can see here from a property perspective, the Autumn Ridge is shown, and all the data has been filtered down so I can see the number of units, it's a distressed portfolio, how much debt is covered. What I want to focus in on Autumn Ridge is net operating income for last month. You can see things were going really well. The last month it took a nosedive. I need to understand what was going on here and how we can prevent this from happening again. So to find out more about financials, all I need to do is click on the financials link. And what happens is a detailed dashboard of information about financials opens up. Now I want to take a moment and orient you to this dashboard. Let me describe what's going on and how you navigate before we dive into the underlying data. First, from a navigation perspective, we have links to all the different dashboards on the top. Summary would take us back to the screen that we were just on. Overview shows those details. We're currently on financials, and I could jump to operations and leasing. Next, we have a section that covers KPI. You can easily see which property or properties you've selected and the KPIs that correspond to it. For example, occupancy. Each of these KPIs is tied to a particular date range. So for example, if I jump down to my period selector, I can change the number of quarters. So instead of looking at a year's worth, I could simply update and the last 6 months of data would be shown. To jump back, I click the reset filter and I'm back to my starting point very easily. So let's take a look at each of the KPIs and understand what we're showing. First of all, we're looking at economic occupancy. How close to gross potential rent our actuals are each over the time period. Next, we have the net effective rent, or NER, the rent that we earn less any concessions that we gave to prospective tenants. We have a couple of expense ratios, our controllable expenses, those expenses like payroll that we can control as a portion of our net operating income, the overall operating expenses as a portion of net operating income, and finally the debt coverage, how many times operating income covers the debt service. And what we like to do is we like to compare our numbers to the overall next level value. So beneath, what you can see is how the overall, all the properties we own are performing. We can easily compare areas where we're doing better for this property, like net effective rent, or areas where we're doing worse, such as debt coverage. Now that you've gotten a feel for the navigation, let's take a look at the data underneath. I was focused on the net operating income trend. And what I have here again is actuals in blue and the budget in red. I had mentioned before that I compare against budget. This is the plan that we make each year to see how our property is doing. At the time when we bought Autumn Ridge, we prepared a business plan. This is the projection of what we thought was going to happen. I could change this dashboard by clicking on business plan, and the whole dashboard will change to compare against one metric or another. For today's demo, I'm actually going to stick on the budget to see how it's going. Now, things were going well, but last month was bad. So what I can do is I can actually click on last month, and what's going to happen is the whole rest of the dashboard is automatically going to be filtered to the same time period. This makes it easier for me to analyze data in the different parts that make up net operating income. We'll look first at the income side, and then for the expense side, and see where their shortfall was coming from. To the right, I have my income trend. This will show me gross potential rent, what the budget was, and how we did. We got fairly close. You know, we a little bit of a shortfall there, but not nearly as much as we saw on the NOI side. So I can switch to rental revenue. And again, it's a similar situation. But from an operating standpoint, we're actually right on budget. We made up those other income areas to actually hit what we were expecting on the income side. So with that not being the cause of my shortfall, I need to then switch down to the expense side, which I have below. From an expense perspective, right away I can see that the actuals are greatly exceeding what we had budgeted. I can look to see if that's on a non-controllable side, which, yeah, there's a little bit of not controllable, but we're not that far over. So most of it must be on a controllable expense. Now it's my job as an asset manager to figure out why. Because if it's a controllable expense, it's something we can do something different about in order to prevent it from occurring. What I have below is what's known as a waterfall chart. The nice thing about a waterfall chart is it shows us how we got from one value to another. On the left, I have the business plan value, so what we expected to make this time period, almost 170K. And then each category walks us through whether we did worse than budget, which it shows up in red as a negative, or we did better than budget, which shows up as green for actual income. At the end of this waterfall chart, we can see where we ended up with 111K. Now what's nice about this chart is I can easily visualize the largest bars and hone in on where that loss was. So if I click on turnover costs, what happens over here is my raw data is actually automatically filtered so I can see everything that's in turnover and understand where our variation was. So I see we've been spending a lot more in turnover costs, especially painting, versus what we have budgeted. Now, what I want to figure out from here is this a one-time event or a trend that's going to continue in the future? So from here, it's actually going to be time to switch over to the other dashboard. But before I leave, what I can also show you is this information. It's available for download as well too. So if I wanted to take out these expenses, I could actually download it in Excel or CSV format. I even could take one of the images on the chart and download as an image to use in another presentation, such as preparing a mid-quarter report. So let me scroll that back up to the top, and I'll switch over to the operations dashboard. Now, for an operations dashboard, you're going to see a very similar setup to financials. Navigation at the top, the KPIs based off a particular property or property, the overall value. Now, what's a little bit different about operations is it's really important for me to see daily data in operations standpoint. So I'll actually see a slice of data for each day rather than the summary just at the end of the month. I can then use my filters to pick different time periods to look at yesterday, this week, last week, months, quarters, and so forth to get a view of my data. Let's take a moment and talk about the KPIs on this particular dashboard before I go into the charts. From a KPI perspective, we have occupancy again, but this is actually physical occupancy. So how many of our units are filled versus how close did we come on a rent perspective. We can also look at delinquency percentages, so how much rent that's 30 days late compared to what was billed. Our make-ready percentage, how many units have been turned and are ready to rent versus the total number vacant. Our renewal percentage of expiring leases, how many of our tenants decide to stay with us for another period. And then finally, the open work orders. And again, we can compare those to the overall portfolio averages. So just to show you an example of some of the daily data, I can look at occupancy. I've filtered into last month, the last few days of last month, just to see where our trend is. And we're actually doing right on budget from both a budget and a forecast perspective. So I'm not too concerned there. I want to kind of start looking forward and seeing what type of expirations do we have coming in the pipeline. And that's where I have my lease expirations. So the next few months aren't too bad, 3 and 2 units. But I start seeing these peaks here where I have 12 one-bedroom units and 6 two-bedroom units. So I have 18 units coming available in a few months. Am I going to have a similar turnover problem then because I have so many units coming available? Well, the next piece of that puzzle is to look at the renewal rate. So if I scroll down a little bit, what I can see is I can see a chart that just shows what renewals are coming up. So for example, I can see this month we had 6 expirations. 5 of those tenants provided notice, and 1 of them actually decided to renew. I can look out next month and following month because typically we're on a 90-day cycle for renewals. The green bar also kind of clues me into people that haven't made a decision. So there may be some opportunities to influence these potential tenants to stay with us instead of leaving, meaning that I would have less turnover costs. So I'm already starting to get a plan of how I can combat the large costs. I can also switch this to percentages just to give me an idea of, okay, we're really not even getting close to 50% of our renewals. So of those 18 that I saw above, right now I can expect at least 8, 9, maybe 10 of those units to come available based off of the past trend. At this point, I'm thinking that we're going to need some type of marketing campaign or incentives. So it's a good time for me to loop in my colleagues. What I can do is I can actually share this dashboard. So what I will be able to do is post it to a chatter feed. I can send this to John and say that we need a campaign. And a copy of that dashboard will be shared with him so he can see the same information I'm looking at. There's other options as well too. You could give somebody direct access. You can actually get a URL and share it to someone, or I could download a whole copy of that dashboard and use it in a presentation or share it with someone. Before I leave this dashboard, there's one last thing I want to show at the bottom, which is a metric comparison. What this does is it takes my whole portfolio properties and lists each one separately. I then have the average, which is the red line in here, to compare against and see where properties are falling above, which is Cloverdale, which is doing really well from an occupancy perspective. Or if I were ascending, I can see kind of the Hall of Shame, the ones that are doing the worst. What I want to look at is I want to look at the renewal rate. I want to switch back to descending. I can then jump over to some of my properties like Wedgwood Hills or Cypress Point that are doing a great job on renewals perspective and look for some clues that I can use in Autumn Ridge to help me with my renewal problem as well too. So now let's jump to the leasing dashboard to kind of complete our analysis. Again, you're looking at the very same structure. So I'm going to kind of jump into the metrics at the top to explain what we're looking at. The first thing we have are the various elements of the leasing pipeline. We're looking at the number of leads, whether those are website visits, calls, or people that walk in. The number of tours. So how many people actually take a tour of one of our properties and units? Applied, how many people end up submitting an application for a particular unit? And then the ones that actually complete the application process are approved and then move in. Now, I have properties of various sizes. Some have 50 units, others have 300 units. So it's not always easy to compare a raw number of leads or tours from one property to another. So I have a series of ratios that will help normalize that data for me. I have our closing ratio, how many tours actually turn into applications. Conversion ratio, how many leads turn into applications. The move-in ratio, which is how many leads end up moving in. And then finally, cancel deny, how many people we either deny an application or somewhere during the process they pull out their applications. So from here, I want to start looking at some of my historic trends to get an idea of what can be coming in the future. I always have occupancy front and center on my mind, so I can see a monthly breakdown of that. But what I want to focus in on instead is this view. The blue bar will show me the number of leads, and then the red line is the number of tours. So you can see that in order to go from tours to applications to move-in, it's less than 10%. So if I need to fill 10 apartments, I'm going to actually need to generate 100 leads in order to come based off of my historic move-in ratio percentage. A different way to look at that is actually here down a ratios perspective. There is some seasonality to my business where I know that we have peaks and troughs over different periods of the year in our closing ratio. And based off of the past trends, I'm most likely heading to a low closing ratio. So I may actually need a few more leads to generate. So it'd be actually better if I could not have to go and get as many new tenants, but if I could keep a lot of the tenants that I have. Along the same line, we like to keep an eye on how much it costs for us to generate those leads or those move-ins. And I have charts that will match up the dollar amount for this particular property. You can see the peaks where we have particular initiatives going on, or again, the red line, which is values for next level overall. And then last but not least, I do like to be able to scan through my grid and see what those trends are. So I have a summary information for the past 2 years of how many leads, tours, and so forth we've been generated. So a nice grid-based format to see all the raw data that was going on. So I kind of have a clear picture now. I have a few ideas for our next strategy session, and given the need to get back to budget that has been driven by turnover costs, I'm looking at some initiatives for kind of keeping our tenants that we have, so encouraging more people to renew with either a discounted promotion off of current rent or a way to ask them to say, if you sign up for a multi-year lease, we'll put some incentives in there as well too. Now the nice thing about what I've shown is the ability to analyze my data. It's really not just limited to the desktop. I know we've been focused on a computer today, but this same available information is available on my mobile phone or even an Apple Watch. So on my commute in each day, I could actually be seeing the operational data on my phone and acting upon it right there. From a data source perspective, I can also pull data from multiple places. This data can come in directly from Salesforce, but I can also integrate data in from an external system. So if there's an external GL system or property management system, that information can flow right into Wave. Best of all, I can combine data from both places. If I have some data inside of Salesforce and data from an external marketing system, I can link that together and display it to you. With Wave to the rescue, I can quickly analyze my book of business without spending much time assembling data or waiting for reports to run. John, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Awesome, Carl. Thanks. So before we head to the Q&A, just a quick recap. Carl's showing you that by deploying Wave to integrate and display your data, you can create a comprehensive 360-degree view of your portfolio that you can easily filter to a particular portfolio or grouping, for example, growth or income, or by geographical region, or by another grouping that you would use in your shop. We also showed you that from the dashboard, we have a direct view of financial, operational, and leasing pipeline performance, and we can drill directly into the underlying data down to the general ledger account level to pinpoint the reasons for variance between our business plan and the actual performance that we're seeing. Just a brief word about us. First, we're a Salesforce partner that focuses on financial services. What makes us unique and distinct is that we do speak your language. Second, we're also keenly focused on making businesses better because to us, technology is not an end in itself. This is not about the latest toy or the coolest gadget. No, we view the Salesforce platform as the means to make life better for your customers and your team, and you, of course. We're answering questions like, how can we eliminate error-prone copying and pasting in Excel models to generate reports? Or how do we tie together different systems to provide an integrated single point of truth like you've seen today? How can you scale your business with less headcount? How do we accelerate the velocity of your business? How can you outperform your competition? And the third piece is, of course, as you've seen, we're experts on the Salesforce platform. We'd love to help you realize your vision for your business. So we're going to segue to the Q&A, and for those of you who have been wondering, yes, we plan to make a recording of this session available afterwards. And so I'm going to read some questions, and we'll answer them. So let's see. The first one from the audience is, I have data from 5 or 6 different property managers who report with different accounting packages. How would that work? One of the great strengths about this kind of a solution, Wave, is that we can take data, whether it would be from an MRI or Yardi or AppFolio or wherever that data might be coming from, and integrate that data together. How can, any other thoughts on that one, Carl? Anything you want to add to that?
I think it's a good question. One of the nice benefits of Wave is that it's tied to really looking at, I'll say, denormalized data. And just what it means is if you had a big spreadsheet of data, it's really easy to put that in and then be able to sort and filter by the different columns that are in there. So from a standpoint of integrating both systems, it makes it pretty easy to execute.
Great. Another question is, how real-time can you make this? I think that's one for you.
Sure, it's a good question. So from a data perspective, the data in Wave, it can be refreshed multiple times a day. But what's important to think about when you're looking at your refresh strategy is matching how often you refresh to how the underlying data changes. If we're pulling data from a financial system that only posts on a monthly basis, there really isn't any value in doing a daily update. You're not bringing in any new information. You're just burning cycles for the heck of it. Now, on the operation side, it definitely makes sense to have near real-time information. If someone were to provide notice today, you want to know about it tomorrow, if not sooner. So we definitely can do multiple updates during the day if that matches how your information is changing.
And how about this? When we're looking at a dashboard, they're great, but what if I want to answer a question? Someone says, every business has different unique problems. How can I answer questions that aren't shown directly on a dashboard?
That's a good question. Definitely our dashboards in Wave are meant to provide quick access to the information that you need the most. So we are trying to answer those common questions, so you're not spending a lot of time assembling reports or generating reports. But there's definitely the scenario where, this spurs a thought that isn't answered by a dashboard, or you want to analyze a piece of data in a different direction. You may have seen where I went and did a download from a particular chart. There's also an option that says open as lens. And what that does is it gives you the ability to do your own free-form analysis. You can add your own filters. You can add your own measures. You can change the grouping. You can add multiple groupings. You can even change the type of chart, and then you can save that. And if it's something that you want to open on a regular basis, you can do that as well too. So we kind of have you covered with getting you started, so you're not wasting your time on normal things, but still have the flexibility to dive into the details when there's something off what's being presented on the screen that you want to go explore.
And here's one more, and I think this is our last question for today. It says, the question is, if I have an existing Excel model, does Wave have to replace it?
So we understand how integral a role Excel plays in a lot of asset managers. There's definitely times where you build a model to determine what an exit scenario would look like and what your returns would be. And we don't want to replace that. We see Excel as complementary to what we're doing. What we can help with is rather than spending time gathering information from multiple sources and putting it into the model, that Excel model can pull data directly from Salesforce. Now, on the same line, once you've finished your analysis and you have the results, we can push that back into Wave so A, you can visualize it, and B, you can share that out to the people who need to see it very easily. So Wave plus Excel is definitely a win for a lot of the asset managers we've worked with.
And actually, I saw one more question that popped up here, which is about the effort involved in integrating external systems and how to link those things together. Can you talk about that at all?
Sure. So from an external system, there's a variety of different options for pulling information inside of Wave. It can come into Salesforce with a traditional integration tool. It could come directly into Wave through an integration tool. You can even go old school and use flat files. So it really depends upon the particular source you're looking to integrate, but we have a lot of tools in our tool belt about how we make that happen and get the data in on a frequent basis. Because we know in today's world, you're not living just in one system. You have multiple places of information, so bring it all together in Wave, we think is the right solution.
Well, we told you we were going to keep it crisp, and that's what we've got for you today. I hope this has been helpful to you. We'd love to talk with you more about how you can harness the amazing power of Wave to really make a transformational difference in your business. So thanks for your time. We'll make a copy of this recording available, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Take care.